and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Sehgal. On the show today, is there a secret plot to oust Zelensky? Is NATO growing wary of Ukraine's president? Well, according to Russian foreign intelligence, NATO allies might be mulling a change in Ukraine's leadership. We'll get you the complete story on the show today. Also on Gravitas, US President Donald Trump has a deal for Ukraine. Trump has said that Ukraine should provide rare earth minerals in lieu of assistance for the war with Russia. Here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show today. China has announced its plans to send a robotic fly detector to the moon's south pole in a bid to search for water. And this flying robot will be a part of China's Chang'e 7 mission. All that and a lot more lined up on the show today. Our top focus on Gravitas. Is there a secret NATO plot to remove Ukraine's Zelensky? NATO, the Western coalition headed by America, which has armed and financed Ukraine's response to the Russian occupation, is now growing tired of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky because he has failed to stop the Russian advance and has now become an obstacle to peace negotiations with Moscow. And also, Zelensky continues to demand money and arms from the West without any hint of accountability. And this is what the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, is alleging. Well, that may be predictable, but this is also the growing sense of reports and commentary appearing in Western capitals. According to the SVR, NATO members are working quietly towards a change in Ukraine's leadership. One turning point came when Zelensky removed his most successful general, we are talking about General Valery Zolonshiny, in March 2024 and sent him to London as Ukraine's ambassador. Now, you could argue that it's no surprise that Russia is saying this. After all, Russia is at war with Ukraine and has its own motives for wanting to change Ukraine's leadership. And you would not be wrong saying that. Still, we cannot help but ask this question. What if what Russia is saying is true? Could there be merit to SVR's claims about a change in leadership in Ukraine? The SVR says that NATO is mulling ways to facilitate Zelensky's removal. One of the ways they could apparently do this is by discrediting him ahead of potential elections in Ukraine next fall. SVR claims that Western officials view Zelensky as a barrier to peace talks with Moscow. You see, Zelensky's term as the president of Ukraine expired last May. However, he has remained in office, refusing to resign during a time of war. Presidential polls in Ukraine have been postponed also due to the martial law imposed when the war began in 2022. According to the SVR, Western leaders want to freeze the war in Ukraine. They allegedly want to steer both Moscow and Kiev towards negotiations. But now, they see Zelensky as an obstacle to achieving this very goal. The Russian intelligence agency claims that NATO is allegedly preparing a campaign to undermine Zelensky's position. And this could involve, number one, releasing information that purportedly connects Zelensky and his administration to misappropriation of over $1.5 billion, which were designated for military equipment purchases. The SVR has also alleged that Zelensky was implicated in the illegal sale of Western-supplied weapons to armed groups in Africa. Well, the question is, how much of all this is true? It's difficult to say at this point of time, especially during wartime. Now, the SVR also claims that with Trump's return to power in the US, there is increasing uncertainty regarding the future of Western support for Ukraine, which may have accelerated efforts to replace Zelensky. However, neither NATO nor Ukrainian officials have publicly addressed the SVR's claims so far. Now, do Russia's claims have any validity? Again, it's hard to say at this point of time. Moreover, Ukraine's history with corruption only complicates matters further. In fact, corruption has been cited as the major reason why Ukraine is still not a part of NATO or the European Union. Western leaders have repeatedly emphasized the need for Ukraine to address corruption as a top priority. Since the conflict began, scandals related to military spending have emerged, including instances of price gouging on food supplies for armed forces, overpriced winter gear, and also unfulfilled contracts for mortar shells. This corruption has led to questions about the integrity as well as efficiency of Ukraine's governance. And NATO member states have also expressed frustration with Zelensky's demands and the never-ending war. For instance, Poland, which was once Ukraine's staunch ally, expressed frustration with Zelensky's lack of gratitude. Polish Defense Minister talked about the general sense of fatigue from the war in Poland. Speaking to Financial Times, he said, and I'm quoting him here, "Of course, there is fatigue in Polish society, and it is understandable, especially when people here see young Ukrainian men driving the latest models of cars or staying in five-star hotels." Not stopping there, he goes on to say that, on the one hand, I understand Zelensky because it is his role to always demand greater assistance. But I think he and Ukraine must also remember that when others were only sending helmets, we sent tanks, unquote. That response was an apparent reference to a recent point of friction between the two countries over Warsaw's refusal to supply Kiev with its remaining stock of MiG-29 jets. Warsaw had said that they needed them for their own security. Warsaw's refusal to send more aircraft showed the cracks in the NATO alliance. But it's not just Poland. In the US, a recent opinion poll has shown that support for arming Ukraine had declined amongst Americans also. And in Germany, EU's most powerful member, lawmakers and military officials say that there is nothing left to give to Ukraine from the German armed forces' past talks. Meanwhile, Russia has repeatedly said that it is open to talks, but has pointed out that it is unable to do so because of the ban on talks that was announced by Zelensky in 2022. Russian President Vladimir Putin has also stated that freezing the conflict is unacceptable and that Ukraine's accession to NATO cannot be allowed. For Russia, the demands to end the war are very clear, and now Russia has also joined the US in urging Ukraine to hold elections. Trump's envoy, Keith Kellogg, stated that elections during wartime are essential for democracy. However, Ukraine fears that holding elections now could weaken national unity and invite Russian influence. But as US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has highlighted, the war is not just about fighting back against Russia, but recognizing the current challenges and the ongoing human suffering. Rubio has stated that the goal should not be a prolonged stalemate on the battlefield. And while some within the Western Bloc continue to support Zelensky's strong leadership during the war, others have argued that his grip on power may not be good for Ukraine. On top of that, Zelensky's popularity is also declining, with more and more Ukrainians expressing concern over his centralization of power, which may undermine the country's democracy. Zelensky says that holding elections would require a change to the electoral code, prohibiting votes during martial law, ensuring fair voting procedure for those serving in combat, and also reaching the millions of Ukrainians displaced during the war. It raises this very question: who will fund that? Will US or EU fund elections in Ukraine? That seems highly unlikely, knowing what we know now. Would it come as a surprise then? NATO has grown wary of Zelensky. And as Ukraine continues to face mounting losses on the battlefield, US President Donald Trump has hinted that US military aid comes at a cost, and that is access to Ukraine's vast deposits of rare earth elements. The next story explains how, with an estimated value exceeding $26 trillion, minerals from Ukraine are crucial for the global supply chain. Take a look.
Back. Outgunned and outnumbered, they are losing ground in the east as Russian troops push forward. The battle for Pokrovsk is turning against them. Supply lines are under fire, fresh reinforcements are scarce, and Moscow is seizing the advantage. The war nears a breaking point, but now a new demand emerges from Kyiv's biggest backer, Washington. US President Donald Trump proposes a bargain: American military support in exchange for access to Ukraine's vast mineral wealth.
We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between. They don't. It's more important for them than it is for us. But they're way below us in terms of money. And they should be paying at least equal.
With a treasure trove of critical raw material worth over $26 trillion, Ukraine is one of the world's most valuable suppliers of metals essential for defense, technology and green energy. To put that in perspective, the US economy is worth $30 trillion. Ukraine has rich reserves of lithium, titanium, beryllium, gallium and uranium deposits. The global market for these minerals has doubled in 5 years, surpassing $320 billion, and is expected to double again soon. If the US secures control over Ukraine's resources, it could reduce its reliance on China, a dominant force in rare earth supplies. But at what cost to Ukraine? President Volodymyr Zelensky is seeking clarity on US aid and making a shocking claim that Ukraine received only $75 billion of the $177 billion US-approved aid.
Look, I as a president of a warring country tell you, we received more than $75 billion. That is $100 billion out of these $177 billion, or even $200 billion as some people estimate, we never received. And this is important because we talk about specific things, because we did not get it with money. We got it in weapons.
As the front line crumbles, Kyiv faces a harsh reality. Will it agree to Trump's terms, risking economic sovereignty, or refuse and see military aid diminish? With Russian forces advancing and time running out, Ukraine is being pushed into a dangerous corner. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Well, let's also tell you what else we have lined up for you on the show today. New intelligence report indicate that Iran is looking for a shortcut to build faster and cruder atomic weapon, and this comes at a time when Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is seeking a negotiation with the Trump administration. Also later on the show, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is in Washington, D.C., has rather taken an unusual flight path to Washington, D.C. in a bid to avoid passing countries that had declared that they would follow arrest warrant issued by the ICC. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in the US, becoming the first foreign leader to be hosted at the White House since US President Donald Trump's return to office. The meeting is likely to focus extensively on the Gaza ceasefire, but there's another key matter that is likely to be a major point of discussion between both the leaders, and that is, will the Israeli Prime Minister get Trump's approval for a military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities? Well, for years, Netanyahu has pushed to draw US attention to Iran's nuclear ambitions that have not only faced resistance from the White House, but also from within Israel's own military and political leaders. As per reports, Netanyahu may aim to secure Trump's green light for a military strike on Iran's nuclear infrastructure. But the question right now is, will Trump approve this? The answer is not so straightforward. In fact, there's history to this. In October last year, at a campaign event in North Carolina, Trump was in favor of Israel attacking Iran's nuclear sites, reportedly stating, and I'm quoting here, "Nuclear weapons are the biggest threat we face," elaborating further that the priority should be to strike Iran's nuclear capabilities first, and I'm quoting again, "worry about the rest later." That's what Trump said. The question now being, what is Iran's stance on this? The Iranian foreign minister last week issued a stern warning that any military aggression by Israel or the US targeting Iran's nuclear sites would ignite an all-out war, labeling such an attack as potentially one of the biggest historical mistakes that the US could make. As per reports, there's a strong possibility that Trump's return to power might embolden Netanyahu to take the military action he's long contemplated. But what exactly is the current state of Iran's nuclear program? Well, according to a report by the New York Times, a covert team of Iranian scientists are reportedly exploring faster, albeit less sophisticated methods to make an atomic weapon. This intelligence was gathered during the final months of the Biden tenure, and it was then passed on to the Trump administration. The report further states that Iran's nuclear engineers are seeking a shortcut, a method that could enable Tehran to weaponize its nuclear fuel in mere months, should its leadership decide to make that choice. As per reports, Iran now possesses enough nuclear material to make 4 or more bombs. However, transforming this material into an actual weapon involves additional and complex steps. This fresh intelligence is likely to be a major discussion between Trump and Netanyahu in Washington, D.C. Trump's stance on this matter remains somewhat uncertain. When asked after his inauguration if he would back an Israeli strike on Iran, his response was cautious. Trump hoped that it could be resolved peacefully without Israel having to strike Iran. As per US intelligence estimates, for Iran to build a functional nuclear warhead capable of being mounted on a missile, it could take anywhere from a year to 18 months. Some Israeli predictions extend that timeline to 2 years. But here's where things get interesting at this point of time. According to New York Times, US officials believe that Iran now has the technical capability to make an older style nuclear device, which is much faster than previously thought. This would reportedly be a rudimentary, less sophisticated weapon, but still capable of delivering a powerful deterrent message to the world. Adding that such a weapon could be assembled quickly, tested and showcased as a proof that Iran has crossed the nuclear threshold. And the mere possession of such a device would force countries who are considering military action to think twice against Iran. And Iran's preparations don't stop just there. In just the past month, Iran has constructed 3 underground missile facilities at undisclosed locations. Simultaneously, Iran has also ramped up military drills, particularly around its nuclear sites, signaling readiness to defend against any potential strikes. So what's next? Netanyahu's visit to the US is not just a diplomatic meeting. It might just determine whether West Asia plunges into a catastrophic conflict. So will Trump grant Netanyahu the authorization he seeks? And if an attack does occur, how will Iran respond? And what will be the global repercussions? At the moment, the answer to all these questions remain unclear. Meanwhile, there's an interesting twist as to how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu got to the US in the first place, especially when an arrest warrant by the International Criminal Court or the ICC looms over him. Well, he seems to have used a shortcut by escaping the European skies. On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took a 14-hour-long flight to Washington, D.C. But the plane took an exceptional route to reach Washington as it crossed the Atlantic Ocean after bypassing the so-called threatening European countries, with the destination of the trip hidden from the radar as well. Well, it sounds rather mysterious, isn't it? Well, this was supposedly done to avoid entering the airspace of all the countries that have declared that they would enforce arrest warrants against Bibi should he enter their zone. But what is this ICC warrant all about, and why is it binding on Netanyahu? On 21st of November 2024, the International Criminal Court, or the ICC, based out of The Hague in the Netherlands, issued arrest warrants against Netanyahu and his former Minister of Military Affairs, Yoav Gallant, and that is over war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Gaza Strip. These warrants mandate the signatories of more than 120 countries to execute the pledge, which basically means arrest the Israeli Prime Minister. Among the signatories are 39 European countries. Which are these countries now? Well, these include major European powers such as Germany, France and Britain. Earlier in January, reacting to Netanyahu's potential interest in visiting Poland, the EU Commission had said that all EU state members must respect the decisions and judgments of the ICC.
The Union supports the International Criminal Court and the principles set out in the Rome Statute. The EU respects the court's independence and impartiality. The EU is strongly committed to international criminal justice and the fight against impunity.
Having said that, just a handful of European capitals have vowed to actually arrest Netanyahu should he step on their territories, despite the legal obligation to do so, while Belgium, the Netherlands, Ireland, Lithuania, Slovenia and Spain had expressed strongest indications to enforce the arrest warrant. Countries like France, Germany and Italy hold a non-committal stance, with Hungary being the only EU country that has so far explicitly said it would defy the court orders. But what about the US? Now, when the ICC order on Netanyahu was issued last year, former US President Joe Biden had called the ruling outrageous and pledged to always stand with Israel against threats to its security. Therefore, even as in both North and South America, almost 24 countries have joined the said treaty, including regional powers such as Brazil, Canada, and Mexico. US is not a signatory to the treaty, which means that the ICC arrest warrant against Netanyahu cannot technically stop him from setting foot on the American soil. Even as the imposition of the order in itself forced Netanyahu to take a detour or perhaps circumvent the air route differently, listen in to this.
Nothing. The United States has no duties to arrest or surrender Netanyahu. So there, the kind of political needs of the United States match rather nicely with the legal position.
Well, we now turn our focus to Pakistan's crumbling diplomatic landscape, where official channels seem stagnant and a father-son duo steps up to fill the void. As per reports, Pakistan's foreign relations are in visible disarray. Reportedly, its diplomatic engagements with key global players have dwindled, leaving Islamabad grappling with diminishing influence at this point of time. Now, China, a country often hailed as Pakistan's iron brother, but is that bond as strong as what it seems? Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has made only a single trip to China since assuming office. That's 11 months ago. The Chinese Premier's visit to Pakistan after 11 long years was not even a stand-alone event. It was combined with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's heads of government meeting in Islamabad. Meanwhile, security issues surrounding the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or CPEC that continues to strain ties between Pakistan and China. Baloch insurgents continuously target CPEC projects, forcing Beijing to demand stronger security guarantees from Pakistan. This tension cast a long shadow over what was once portrayed as an unshakable partnership between the two countries. On the other side of the diplomatic aisle, ties with the United States are equally lackluster. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi recently visited Washington, D.C. However, instead of strengthening ties, his trip rather turned into a diplomatic blunder. Naqvi ended up at an event sponsored by an anti-China organization, an embarrassment that forced Pakistan's Foreign Office to issue a public reaffirmation of its commitment to the One China policy. If that wasn't bad enough, US senators he met later tweeted messages demanding the release of former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Now, for a country desperate to mend ties, this was nothing short of a fiasco. Adding to the diplomatic void, Pakistan's current foreign minister, Ishaq Dar, is yet to establish formal contact with the new US administration. Ishaq Dar's attempts to engage, like his unreciprocated letter to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, have gone unanswered. Even the customary congratulatory message from Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to the recently elected US President Donald Trump seems to have been ignored. No phone calls, no official meetings, just radio silence. And amid this diplomatic drought, two faces in Pakistan are stepping in. We are talking about President Asif Ali Zardari and his son, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. They both appear to have the onus to reignite crucial foreign ties. Zardari is heading to China on a 5-day state visit, according to Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And his discussions will cover everything from economic and trade cooperation to counter-terrorism strategies and also future connectivity projects under the CPEC framework. But this is not Zardari's first visit to China. His ties with Beijing run deep. During his presidency from 2008 to 2013, he paid a visit to China at least 7 times, strengthening economic partnerships and advancing CPEC initiatives. The Chinese Communist Party and Pakistan's People's Party maintained regular high-level exchanges. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is in the United States. As per reports, he is scheduled to attend the National Prayer Breakfast, an event where he will share the room with US President Donald Trump. Bilawal's experience with US diplomacy is not new, as just over a year ago, he was the last to engage directly with the US administration, meeting then Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Washington in 2022. Interestingly, reports suggest that Bilawal was initially set to accompany his father to China, but an invitation to the prayer breakfast in Washington prompted a change of plans, perhaps a telling sign of how the Zardari-Bhutto duo is strategically splitting the diplomatic efforts. Zardari will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing tomorrow. A day later, Bilawal will find himself in the company of Donald Trump in Washington. Now, since Shehbaz Sharif's government came to power, direct engagements, whether through official visits or even simple phone calls, have been scarce or almost non-existent. This void raises a critical question. Can the father-son duo succeed where the Sharif government has failed, or are we witnessing Pakistan's slow fade from the corridors of global influence? We now shift our attention to the United States' increasingly aggressive stance on illegal immigration. As per reports, a total of 205 Indian nationals who had allegedly entered the US unlawfully are now being deported back to India aboard a US military C-17 aircraft which took off from Texas earlier today and is now expected to land in Amritsar on Wednesday morning. It is reportedly the first time that such a large group of Indian nationals have been deported from US. The deportation aligns with US President Donald Trump's stern approach towards illegal immigration, which is a cornerstone of his administration. The US government has already carried out similar deportation operations targeting migrants from countries like Guatemala, Peru, and Honduras. However, this flight to India is reportedly the farthest destination yet. And the timing of this deportation is noteworthy. As per reports, upon arrival in India, the deported individuals will undergo thorough debriefings and verification procedures, reportedly a standard protocol to confirm identities, understand the circumstances and ensure that any legal matters related to the deportation are addressed. But this deportation is not an isolated event, but a part of a broader immigration enforcement campaign. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth visited the U.S.-Mexico border, marking his first official visit since taking office. Accompanied by Tom Homan, who is the newly appointed border SAR, Hegseth met with the troops tasked with securing the border.
The Defense Department has been helping on the border for decades, just not at the level that President Trump has charged us with right now. Because we believe, and he believes, that border security is national security. Guys and gals of my generation have spent decades in foreign countries guarding other people's borders. It's about time we secure our own border.
However, Trump's hardline immigration policies have sparked strong reactions worldwide. As per reports, at the recent Bolivarian Alliance for the People of Our America, or ALBA summit, leaders from Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela, they all have criticized Trump's approach. Take a listen.
Desaparezca.
We express our solidarity with the migrants being deported from the United States. The day will come when this anti-immigrant attitude and trend, which has been exacerbated, will disappear. The contribution of migrants to economic and productive activities which demand labor should be valued as it deserves.
De estos países.
Well, back in the US, cities across the country are witnessing large-scale demonstrations as a part of the Day Without Immigrants demonstrations. This movement reportedly aims to highlight the role immigrants play in the American economy, from agriculture to essential services. Demonstrators carried signs with messages reminding the public that immigrants are the backbone of many industries in America.
Other side, I have immigrants built America, because who's the one who does your crops? It's immigrants. They're the ones in the fields. Who picks up your trash? It's immigrants. They're the ones that are cleaning out the offices, the bathrooms, everywhere you work. They're the ones that clean up. They're not the ones that are sitting in an office desk doing paperwork. They're the ones behind everything.
Meanwhile, U.S. Marines have reportedly been deployed to Guantanamo Bay to assist the U.S. Department of Defense in expanding the migrant operations there. This move is directly tied to Trump's mission to fortify American borders and also enhance national security measures. As deportations continue, Trump's immigration policies remains a key topic not just within the U.S. but across various countries. Moving on, America has a big problem in the form of Elon Musk. The world's richest man is waging a war against U.S. bureaucracy, but for power and for profit. Well, here's what I mean when I say that. It's been 2 weeks since the tech billionaire started leading U.S. government's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. And in 2 weeks, Musk has upended the federal bureaucracy, defied protocols, dismissed federal employees, and made efforts to shut down U.S. aid. All decisions that not only impact American lives, but also lives of people around the world. Here's what he has been up to. Elon Musk's team has gained access to sensitive financial and data systems. They have disregarded officials who have warned against breaching certain government protocols. Musk and his team have also swiftly shut down specific government programs. On Saturday, he said that his willingness to work on the weekends was his superpower. He has said that it gave him an advantage over his adversary. The adversary he was talking about was the federal workforce. There's also pressure on employees. Federal employees say that they have received messages implying that they were not hardworking, which encouraged some of them to leave their positions altogether. Several former and current senior government officials, even those who like what he is doing, say that they are feeling helpless about how to handle Musk's level of unaccountability. On Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump himself sounded a cautionary note. He told reporters, and I quote here, "Elon cannot do and will not do anything without our approval, and we will give him the approval where it's required, and when not appropriate, we will not. If there's a conflict, then we will not let him get near it," unquote. However, Trump has also given Musk vast power over the bureaucracy, power that regulates his companies and awards them contracts. Musk is not shaping public policy. He is also making personal decisions, including reportedly successfully pushing for Trump to pick Troy Menck as the Air Force Secretary. Here's the kicker: Menck, who previously ran Pentagon's National Reconnaissance Office. He helped Musk secure a multi-billion-dollar contract for SpaceX to build and deploy a spy satellite network for the government. But it is not to stop there. Since Trump's inauguration, Musk and his team have also taken over the U.S. Digital Service. It has been renamed as United States DOGE Service. Musk's team have also commanded the federal government's Human Resources Department, called the Office of Personnel Management. They have gained access to the Treasury's payment system, which is a powerful tool to monitor and also potentially limit government spending. But most importantly, Musk has tried to dismantle U.S. aid. It oversees civilian foreign aid, and on Sunday, Musk called U.S. aid evil in various posts on X. Remember, Trump has already frozen foreign aid spending, but Musk has reportedly gone further. On Monday at around 1:45 a.m. local time, he posted on X, which he runs, by the way, and I quote here, "We spent the weekend feeding U.S. aid into the wood chipper. Could gone to some great parties, did that instead." But it does not stop there. Musk's allies now reportedly want to inject AI tools into government systems. Musk wants to use AI to help contracts and recommend cuts. In a meeting on Monday, Thomas Shedd, the recently appointed Technology Transformation Services Director and also an ally of Musk as a former Tesla engineer, reportedly told the Services Administration workers that the agency's new administrator is pursuing an AI-first strategy. Throughout the meeting, Shedd reportedly shared his vision for a GSA that operates, and like I'm quoting here, startup software company. The idea is to automate different internal tasks and also centralize data from across the federal government. Well, what's the problem with that, you may wonder and ask? Well, according to cybersecurity experts, this is a major red flag. For one, automating the government, it is not the same as automating other things like self-driving cars. We are talking about people here, not machines. People who are working for the welfare of the people, not for profit. Now, it's no surprise, but Musk's actions have alarmed Democrats as well as government watchdog groups. They question if Musk is breaching federal laws that give Congress the final power to create or eliminate federal agencies, to set their budgets, to require public disclosure of government actions, or to prohibit people from taking actions that might benefit themselves personally. Well, at least 4 lawsuits have been filed in federal court to challenge his authority, but it remains to be seen if the judicial review can keep up with Musk. On Monday, Democrats have reportedly said that they would introduce legislation to try to bar Musk's team from entering the Treasury system. Senator Chuck Schumer told New York Times, and I'm quoting here, the Treasury Secretary must revoke Doge's access to the Treasury payment system at once. If he does not, Congress must act immediately. Musk has been doing all of this in the name of cost cutting, which in itself is never a bad thing. But questions are now being raised. What about safeguards? Who is keeping a tab on accountability? What about conflict of interest here? You see, Musk is not just a government man now, he is also the world's richest man. A very, very successful entrepreneur who stands to benefit from government contracts as well as decisions under his influence. Ultimately, there's nothing for a government official to have what Musk has, a huge conflict of interest, including domestic holdings, foreign connections, business ties in China. There's also nothing for someone who is not a full-time employee to have so much power to reshape the federal workforce. In its quest to find water on the moon, China is all set to deploy a smart robotic flying detector. Yes, a flying robot will be China's next tool in search for water on the moon's south pole. According to reports, China will be launching its Chang'e 7 mission next year to explore the lunar south pole, and this mission would play a pivotal role in laying the groundwork for a future research station on the moon, and also for China's ambitious goal of landing humans on the moon by 2030. The Chang'e 7 mission will consist of an orbiter, a lander, a lunar rover and a flying detector. Upon landing, the rover, lander and detector will work together to carry out the most detailed survey of the moon's pole to date. Not just that, the 6-legged Chinese flying detector will also be able to climb, crawl, jump and even fly using rocket propulsion, further allowing it to explore rugged terrain and deep craters beyond the reach of other wheeled rovers. Well, according to a 2023 research paper by the China Academy of Space Technology, the flying detector can travel dozens of kilometers in a single leap when compared to conventional rovers, which are limited to a range of just a few kilometers. And after arriving on the moon, the detector is expected to perform at least 3 powered leaps before switching to solar power for extended surface exploration. This mission marks a major step towards China's goal of building a permanent research station on the moon, and also opening new possibilities in space exploration. Now, for years, scientists have considered the south pole of the moon as a potential location where ice deposits in permanently shadowed craters have never been exposed to sunlight for billions of years. And this resource may be one of the requirements for long-lasting human habitation on the moon. With China's Chang'e 7 mission, Beijing has mounted a major effort to establish itself as a key player in space, a domain that nations, including the United States, are increasingly looking at, not just for scientific benefit, but also with an eye to resources and national security. Well, scientists have sounded the alarm as H5N1 bird flu has increasingly shown disturbing signs of adaptation, with 68 North Americans infected and 1 death already recorded. The virus is defying traditional transmission patterns, and the spectre of an airborne pathogen is looming large, putting the public health system at a risk. Our next report telling you more.
The world came to a grinding halt. Bustling cities wore a deserted look. The world learnt a painful lesson in 2020. When COVID-19 spread silently for months before the WHO confirmed that it was airborne. More than 7 million people died. Scientists fear history could repeat itself, this time with a far deadlier virus. The US Centers for Disease Control has tracked dozens of human infections linked to dairy farms. The virus jumps from animals to people, likely through contaminated droplets from milking machinery. But what if it mutates to travel through the air? Some flu strains have already shown that they can survive in tiny airborne droplets. If H5N1 follows suit, the virus could drift unseen through hospitals, restaurants, and crowded spaces. Inhalation alone would be enough to spread it. Certain mutations might even help it latch onto human respiratory cells, just as seasonal flu does. Tracking flu outbreaks is already difficult, with 1 billion cases of seasonal flu each year. If bird flu becomes airborne, containment could be near impossible. The prospects of an airborne H5N1 variant presents a frightening scenario for global public health. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Well, today is World Cancer Day, and if you are a smoker, chances are that this is the day that serves as an annual reminder to why you should quit. But for non-smokers too, there's some bad news. As the proportion of people being diagnosed with lung cancer who have never touched a cigarette or smoked tobacco in their entire lives is also increasing. As per the World Health Organization's Cancer Agency, according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, lung cancer in people who have never smoked is now estimated to be the 5th highest cause of cancer deaths worldwide. Alarming to say the least. What's more, the IARC also said that lung cancer in never smokers is also occurring almost exclusively as adenocarcinoma, which is a type of cancer that originates in the glands and produces fluids such as mucus. Not just that, it has also become the most dominant of the 4 main subtypes of the disease in both men and women globally. You see, as per the IARC study published in the Lancet Respiratory Medicine Journal, about 200,000 cases of adenocarcinoma were associated with exposure to air pollution in 2022. That's not all. The study also maps an uptick in lung cancer cases more commonly among women who have never smoked, with adenocarcinoma accounting for 45.6% of global lung cancer cases among men and 59.7% of cases among women in 2022. Now, what explains this? Studies show this could be because of specific gene variations that make them more susceptible to lung cancer. Even without smoking, not just that, fluctuations in female hormones, particularly during menopause, could also increase the risk. To make sense of this, we spoke to Dr. Vishal Rao, Country Director Head, Neck Surgical Oncology and Robotic Surgery at HCG Cancer Center, Bengaluru. Take a listen to what he had to say on this.
Women cancer is rising, and lung cancer seems to be a part of that spectrum. One of the things that we possibly could attribute this to could be the contribution of passive smoking. Secondhand smoking could be one of the reasons that could be contributing, and we know today that secondhand smoke is more harmful than first-hand smoke, because when you are taking in the first-hand smoke, you are taking it through a filter, whereas second-hand smoke is a combination of the exhaled air, which is the filtered air, through the cigarette filters, and the direct smoke that comes out of the butt of the cigarette on the tip of the cigarette.
And what effects do pollution and the changing climate have on the rise in cancer cases? Listen to this.
I think one of the things that I feel today are, if you look at the overall trends of cancers rising, we are living in an unlimited, more and an instant era, where everything seems to be looking at it. And that itself is a cancerous mindset, which is looking at adult trends, carcinogens, a kind of vulture capitalistic approach to the environment, which is actually causing this kind of a flip in the environment's reaction to us.
Does this mean that smokers can continue with their smoking habits? Not quite, as tobacco is still a key trigger to cancer. In a 2024 study that explored the uniqueness of lung cancer in Southeast Asia, it was found that 42% of men and 14.2% women currently either smoke or use smokeless tobacco, which makes them more prone to the risk of getting cancer. How can this be changed? Well, this begs for collective efforts from all parties involved, that are doctors, physicians and patients alike, in a bid to raise awareness so that cancer can be kept out of the bay. As scientists are scrambling to find out what else is causing lung cancer beyond smoking, the obvious signs such as incessant coughing, shortness of breath, or all these must not be missed. These are important signs and one must get diagnosed as early as possible. Well, that's all that we have in today's edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching Beyond World is One. Do stay tuned.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing. Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION. World is one.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from